Hello and welcome to another Pocket Process video. Today I'm going to be documenting the month of April, like the end of the month of April post Cuba trip. So I have my photos printed out here at 4x6, 3x4. I also have some printed at 2x3 here in my hand right now. And I also have a 2x4, which is how I print my screenshots. Now, any photos that I want to be center of attention or that are good quality, beautiful photos, I try to print at the larger of those two sizes. So 4x6 for horizontal and 3x4 for vertical. And then any photos that might be repetitive, less quality, or smaller, things that I don't want to be such a big focus on my page, I'll print at the smaller of those two sizes. And then screenshots are screenshots. I do have two photos here that I had to print at weird sizes just because they were unusual aspect ratios. One is a screenshot from an app that I've been using, and another is just a table. And the app, some of these photos that you see will actually not make it onto this spread. My first plan was that this would be a spread that covers the last part of April, like from the second half of April and into the very beginning of May. I just scrapbooked this yesterday, and right now it is May 15th. So I'm kind of trying to bridge a fairly large gap of time, but I also didn't take a whole lot of photos. It was kind of a lot of time was spent just post Cuba trip, just kind of getting back into the routine. So at first I thought that that was going to work, but you'll see midway through the process, I shift a little bit and move some things around. But anyhow, for now, my plan is that I'm going to use all of those photos and try to span a 2-page spread, like, my regular 2-page spread. And then I'm thinking I probably have enough photos to require an insert as well. So you just saw me there familiarizing myself with my supplies. I do keep my supplies in a little washi container now. It's just my latest thing that I'm doing. I'm always changing the way I store things in my room. So before I do this, I just wanted to refamiliarize myself because it's actually been a while since I've looked at this project, my daily project life album. And so my last page was this one that had a whole lot of really interactive elements on it. And I just wanted to remember what I was doing, what kinds of things I was documenting so that I could kind of pick up where I left off. And I do need to do a little insert that says we went to Cuba in here between that page and this page. We went to Cuba. So I will be doing a little insert that will probably go midway through this page, and it'll probably be a 6x12. This is just a photo that I got from Facebook, one of those, timeline photos from however many years ago. And I thought it was really cute of my daughter, but I have too many photos, so I'm not going to include that kind of a photo in this spread. And I am going to use some lift the flaps because that will help. So these are what I call flippity flaps, but they're made by Snap, and they're called photo flaps or photo flips actually. And it's a good way to get a couple of photos and also some journaling into one single space of a pocket. So I'm going to use a couple of those on this page just to try to get as much as I can on this page, but also have room for journaling and have some room for some filler cards as well. So now that I've figured out where all my photos are going to go, and space them around the page a little bit, I'm just looking through the cards that I have. I have the April and May kits from Ali Edwards, the Stories by the Month kit and the Story kit, although I don't have the Story kit pulled out here. I'm just looking up some of the dates because I might want to use some roller date stamps on this. I don't typically put a whole lot of dates on. I usually just put one every here and there, and then you can kind of keep track. Most of these are from around the same time, so I don't need exact dates, but I'm putting some dates on these just in case I want to use some roller date stamps. And the way I'm doing that is I'm just looking it up in my Photos app in the information for each of the videos. So at first I thought I'd put April on one side and May on the other side, but I have a lot more April than May. So then I thought, well, I'll put April on one side and then May will be basically the bottom of the second half of this spread. I do like this quote card. It's about April. So I thought if I'm going to use it, I better use it here because when I turn the page, it'll definitely be May. So I have some April gratitudes from the Allie Edwards Stories by the Month kit, and then these are from Paper Person. I really like that daffodils one, but I think the fresh air one is too pink, so I'm going to pull that back, and instead I'll use that rainbow card from Allie Edwards. And I do want to use that April card that's in my hand here as well. I want to get as much April as I can. Then I chose that alfresco card from the Paper Person kit because I'm talking about my patio here. So I'm just kind of thinking about how everything is going to balance out, and I need room for all the journaling that I want to do as well. I added a little chipboard piece that says 2022. That's from the January Allie Edwards kit. And then I used another one of those rainbow cards. I have rainbow cards from April and May Allie Edwards kits, so that's why I have a couple of different options there. And these are really cute little fabric embellishments. They're fabric stickers. They're kind of made out of the same kind of fabric as badges are made out of. And I thought I would use some of those. 3 of them are very specific to May, so I won't use those on this page, but I'll use the 2 that are not specific to May. And then I'm thinking I'll do a lift the flap here. And then I do have a 4x6 photo up in the top corner that shows an ambulance in my driveway. And I thought I would also put a lift the flap there as well to put some journaling about why that was there and what was going on around that. So as you can see, I'm really taking my time here to decide which cards go where, and I am having a look at the chipboard as I go to try to make sure that I save some space for some of these chipboard pieces that I want to use. I particularly wanted to get rid of this sheet of chipboard. I think it's from April of this year from Allie Edwards, and I just wanted to not have to put that back in my stash. So I took those 2 chipboard tags out, and I will use those on this page. And now I'm kind of feeling like all of these supplies, I'm good. Like I don't need those. I'll wait and use those on the next page that is going to be much more obviously May. So before I pulled that out, I actually had a couple of leftovers from March, so of the Allie Edwards Stories by the Month kit. So I thought, well, let's get those in this page as well. I don't want too much of a backlog of cards accumulating. So that means that now I have 2 of those rainbow cards to use on this page. So one of them will be under a flip so that it won't look so much like too much of the same thing. I had a 4x6 card that was from Paper Person. It actually came as a what is it? A 6x8 piece of paper that I cut down to 2 4x6s. And so now I have pretty much everything mapped out where I want it to be, and I'm keeping those stamps out just in case I want to use any images from that stamp set. And I'll start with the easiest one, which is this driver's license. So my daughter got her full driver's license, and so she didn't need her learner's license anymore. And this is good continuation because the page before this shows her proudly receiving her driver's license, but it didn't actually come in the mail until the following week. So that's why she didn't hand over her learner license to me to put in my project life until after that, until after the new one came. So I'm just adding that 2022 sticker on there. And it turns out I'm glad that I used that light blue sticker there because I'm going to pull in some light blue in a few different places on this page. So that's just one more area that will end up being a repetition of the light blue. I did just a very thin journaling strip there that says no need for a learner's license, just to indicate what that was. I'm using my glue pen here because it's a very narrow strip, much more narrow than a tape runner, and I'm just underlining the journaling. So first card is done, and now I'm going to work on this cookie card. So right off the bat, I knew that I wanted to use this piece of chipboard here. It's from I think it might be from the March or the April Allie Edwards Stories by the Month kit. And what I thought I would do is a little bit of labeling around and behind that. So I haven't used the dies for this label set yet. I believe I've used the labels, but I think I've hand cut them. So I went ahead and separated all of those dies so that they're much easier to use. This is an Ellie's Studio labels and die set that I got quite some time ago, but I haven't fully used it. I'm pretty sure I've used it every here and there, but I've never actually used the dies, so I'm excited to be able to use it today. And I'm looking forward to using it a lot. So I'm just going to condition this stamp because I think this is one that I haven't used yet. I just used my eraser, just very gently went over it with an eraser just to remove any residue from the manufacturing process. Oftentimes photopolymer stamps have a bit of a coating on them. I am picking out colors from Stampin' Up. I have Balmy Blue, Pacific Point. I haven't pulled out Pacific Point yet. Daffodil Delight and Pumpkin Pie. So just the three. Oops, I stamped a little bit too emphatically on that one and got some extra ink on there. So I just restamped it. So that's the Pumpkin Pie, the Balmy Blue, and now the Daffodil Delight. There we go. And I used a piece of paper that was just a wee bit too big to go through my little cuddle kid, which is what I prefer to use on my desk because it's just a tiny little die cut machine. It's much easier to manage, but I'm going to pull over my Big Shot and I just keep it on this cart, which is really handy. And I have to grab some washi tape here just to keep these in place. I do have a magnetic plate that I can use to keep dies in place, but I haven't been using it for the past several years, so I'm just using washi tape here. And I made the mistake of positioning these from the side instead of really getting over top of them to see them from the top down. And because of that, some of them cut a little bit off. And so I would recommend that when you position your dies on your stamped images, that you just look at it from a bird's eye view, just from above. So for me, that would involve showing you guys the top of my head. I will do that from now on so I don't have to trim off little bits like I am right now. But that's okay. I'm just going to make sure that I keep on top of everything. You might notice after I cut apart my dies, I did write the number of dies in the set. I think there are 10 in this set. I do that for every single die set that I have so that I know when to stop looking for dies, just in case something gets lost on my desk. I don't want to be kind of having to figure out, do I have them all or do I need one more? I want to be able to just count and say, yep, I've got all 10. So I layered those two labels like that with blue under the yellow. And then at the last minute, I decided I do like to put string or something in a tag, especially if there's a hole. So because there's holes in these, I decided to just go into my stash. These are some lawn trimmings, this twine, and I like how it looks. It adds a little bit of extra color there. And now I'm just journaling. I made these cookies because that's pretty remarkable. I don't make cookies. It's not my jam. But I was on a break from work, and one of the benefits of working from home, I had like a half hour and I didn't know what to do with myself. I was actually, for once, caught up on my paperwork. So I thought, I'm just going to make cookies. And I encountered a recipe in a weird way that I just wanted to try. So here are my April gratitudes. And I had been keeping track of gratitudes in my planner, but I stopped doing that. So I'm just kind of coming up with gratitudes off the top of my head here. I do like to reflect on gratitudes besides just when I'm doing my project life, so that once I do my project life, I kind of already know what I've been grateful for. But in this case, I'm writing the ability to travel to Cuba was just what we needed. And then the second one is health. We're all so lucky to have relatively few health problems, so few that when we do get sick, it is noteworthy. And so then I just crossed off the 3 and 4 and 5 because I'm just coming up with 2. Now this is one of my favorite washi tapes of all times. It's this really subtle orange color with these arrowy chevron things with little red hearts on it. It's from Freckled Fawn, and it's really dried out and hard to use, but I'm determined here to use it. So I got some on that card just to cover up the bottom part where there's no writing. And it is nice and subtle because the orange is not too dark at all. So in this photo, I'm going to use staples on that hole instead of putting some twine in it. And I'm just going to use my hot off the press journaling template to draw some journaling lines right on the deck part of this photo. And the tag there says, "This story has my heart." And the journaling says, "Dress shopping was a success. It only took one afternoon." So, what will I do next? Now I'm thinking maybe I need a page protector for an insert for some of this stuff. I'm not too sure. But while I'm at it, I will just stick this sticker down because I was pretty sure that that was all I wanted to do with that photo. And now this was a birthday, and I did have that orange tag left over, or label left over, I mean. So let's add a few more labels here. I really like this idea of, instead of searching through my stash for several minutes, just stamp out and make the label that you need. I think I'm going to be doing this more in my process. It's also really fulfilling to just say, "I wish I had a blue label," and just make one, instead of saying, "I wish I had a blue label," and then searching for 10 minutes just to find out that, yeah, I have one, or no, I don't. So yeah, this is good. I don't think it necessarily takes me 10 minutes to search, but I do have a lot of labels. They're all stored in one place, but it is a lot of searching. I guess it kind of depends on your mood. Sometimes you're just in more of a crafty mood and you just want to do more of these things by hand. And other times I feel kind of almost not lazy, but just kind of like I just want to do the easy things in project life, right? So on those days, I'll reach for a label sticker that's already created. I remembered that I had a paper person kit that had a birthday theme, so I went into my stash and grabbed it. And I love that I'm storing my stash by theme now, because this kind of thing is possible where I would have never thought of it otherwise. So I was looking for something for this card, but for this photo, but I ended up finding that one of Cheers, and that drink looks just like the drink that they were drinking. So I'm going to use that on the other photo that I thought was done with just that little fabric sticker. This little tag that I have from Kelly from the paper person kit says "Happy birthday to you." So I want to put that on too. And I want to put something in the center of that circle, and I thought, boy, it would be great if I had a cake rubber piece, but I don't. So I put a light blue star. And again, that's another piece of light blue that ties in with that blue 2022 on my daughter's license at the very beginning. That was just a coincidence that I picked the color that would kind of be coming up again and again. So I attached that tag so that it covers the kitchen, and I didn't want to cover the kitchen in the 3x4 photo because my husband was in it making a drink, even though it was super blurry. And so, but this was a better place to add something that covers the kitchen. And it really helps the photo to focus on the two people in the photo instead of the distracting background. And then this tag is a chance to tell some of the story. In really tiny letters at the top, it says "Cheers." And then I'm drawing some lines on it. And it has this really cool outline illustration of two hands holding a shadowed drink. Well, two shadowed drinks. So I'm writing on here, "Celebrating Jen's B-Day with a couple of jungle birds." So that gives me a chance to say the name of the drink that we were trying that night. And then there's that photo that I didn't want to cover up the background, because even though it's out of focus, it does show Scott with his shaker in the background. And that's part of the story, is that Scott enjoys making cocktails for people. So let's move on to the second page. Now, what I thought I would do is add that quote page to a flippity flap, because that allows it to not take up too much real estate. I can still put something underneath as a story. And what I decided to do here, I do have an extra story that I forgot about. So I printed some small photos. These are printed with the index photo option on my photo software, and it just prints very small prints. And what I'm deciding here is I'm actually going to bump some of these photos over to the next spread that I'll do on Monday. And so that gives me some room, because originally, remember when I pulled out that pocket page to use as an insert, I was going to put the prom dress photos on that insert, but this will allow me to put the prom dress photos in this layout, like just on the spread. That way it'll save my insert for being, by the way, we went to Cuba. So I do have some more kind of crafting to do now, and I'm going to have to shift some things around because mostly all of this page will be April, although that photo of the deck is technically taken in early May. It doesn't really matter. I don't follow close rules about that as long as it's generally in chronological order. So now that I've shifted some things around, I have a few more blank spaces, so I have to come up with some ideas for what to put in them. So I'm drawing from the Paper Person kit, and this will make a really nice background backer for that quote card. I really like that patterned paper, and that will give it a chance to shine because I don't think I'm going to put anything on it, so it'll just be by itself. Oh, I really like this Open Arms for the Season, One Day at a Time card. So this is what I'm thinking I'm going to do. Now, obviously, I have to go back to that page that I thought I was done with because there's an empty card on it now. Let's switch this with that Open Arms card because I don't think I need to tell another story or anything there. So we'll just leave that as a plain filler card without anything done to it or anything. And now I'm just going to trim these down. And I don't know what specific size these are. They were just whatever size the index printer, the index feature on my app printed them at. And you can change the size based on how many you want to fit on a page and that sort of thing. And it just makes them all even. So it's a good way to make sure that all of your photos are the same. I've had a few requests to share my photo printing process, what apps I use and how I get them this size. So I will be making a video about that. I'm not very technically oriented, but I will do my best. So I'm just trimming these down. I did want them to be framed on white matting, so I'm just using my little Fiskars trimmer here that Close to My Heart sent me, and I'm just making those all matted so that I can line them up like that. And the story that I have to tell here is that she loved the color of this dress and she loved the cut of this dress and went back and forth between the two before we found out that the lady in the store could find us the blue dress in the red color. So that's the one that she bought. So now I'm going to print from, this is a Jen Scow stamp set, and I'm stamping this stamp that says love, love, love. And I'm stamping it 3 times. That's from the Here For It stamp set from Jen Scow. I really love that stamp set. And so what I'm going to say here is love, love, love the color, love, love, love the cut, love, love, love it all was my kind of my plan. So I'm looking for some stamp sets that say the, but I can't find a single the word, but there is a phrase here on this stamp set from Ellie Studio that includes the word the. So I'm actually going to cut this stamp set apart, like this little individual stamp. I can't remember what exactly I think it says here's the story. And so I'm just leaving here's end story on the sheet, and I'm just going to use the. And I can put that back together again if I ever do want to use the phrase, here's the story. But that's, to be honest, that's not a phrase I use all that often. There are a lot of other phrases in that stamp set that I'm a lot more likely to use. But if I ever did want to use it, I could just put it back together on the stamp block. So as you can see, I changed my mind on the last one because I didn't have the word it in a similar, and looking for one would be too hard. So I ended up going with the. So it's also nice and repetitive, right? So now what I'm doing, I'm sorry that I didn't zoom out, but I have my letter sticker stash here, my small letter sticker stash, and I am looking for, oh, I'm so sorry that I didn't zoom out, but I am looking for some letter stickers in the red and in the blue that are close enough to one another that they're going to look okay as part of this kind of repetitive title. I looked at those October afternoon ones, and then I found these Cosmo Cricket ones, and then I think these are from Glitz Designs. Yeah, I'm positive that these are from Glitz Designs. So I'm going to spell out color in red because that was the red dress, and then I'm going to spell out cut in blue because that was the blue dress. And then I haven't really thought much further than that. And here I am accidentally spelling out cut in red, and then I'm going to realize, wait a second, I didn't mean to do that. I meant for this to be in blue. So I will spell it out in blue. I realized with 3-letter stickers, I don't need to use my alignment tool. And just going to kind of make that look the way I want it to look. And now for the last one, I'm going to say the whole dress. And so I'll spell out whole in blue and dress in red. So I decided to start from the middle and work my way out just to make that look good with the word above it. And there we go. That card is done. I thought about putting a piece of washi tape to fill that space below the first 2 phrases, but I decided not to. Now I'm just using one of those, this is the backside of one of those Kelly Perky papers that I cut down from Paper Person. And so I'm using it just as a journaling card here. And the journaling says, she almost bought the red dress, ... almost bought the blue dress, ... Then we asked the sales lady if the blue cut came in red. Not only did it come in red, but there was one in the store in her size hiding on the wrong rack. It's like it was meant to be. So there we have that story. And this page is coming together quite nicely. It's making me smile. I like how it's looking. So let's work on this bottom part, which is telling the story of this new deck set that I have. I want to use one of these tab stickers that came in the April Stories by the Month kit. And it seemed like it was sticky enough that I didn't have to use a staple on it. But then when I went to put it in my album, I noticed it had actually unstuck from the page protector. So I would use a staple, and I ended up using a staple on it. You just won't see that part. Now, the Paper Person kit for April or May came with this really cute weather stamp set. So I decided, because we had a nice warm weekend and we bought deck furniture, and then on Sunday, and then the Monday morning when I planned to use it, it was like so cold. So I put on my winter coat, my hat, my scarf, and a really big fuzzy pair of slippers, and went out and had my coffee out there anyways. So I thought about stamping that snowflake on paper and cutting it out, but that wasn't going to work. So I ended up just stamping the snowflake right on the photo. You can't see it all that well, but you can see it when you look closely. You can see it more in real life than you can on the video. So this is what's going to be underneath of that flap, is this kind of wood grain. I went with wood grain because it was on a deck, so it kind of loosely kind of covers that theme. I am just putting some lines on this tag. I'm really trying to use more tags in my pages. I moved where I keep my tags so that I can access them a little bit more easily. I have a lot of tags, so I got to get them onto pages. My journaling here says, once the scrap room terrace was set up, I was determined to use it. Never mind that it was below zero. That's what we're calling this little area because it's just outside my scrap room. Like the door is right beside the door to my scrap room. So which is also my home office. So it's where I hang out when I have to do, like if I have breaks where I have to do paperwork, or I'll bring my laptop out there and do some work. It's been like really great to get a chance to get out of your room. I can do coloring out there, or, you know, all sorts of different things I could bring out there with me to do. I just stamped a tiny little word from my little collection of stamps that I keep beside me. It says chill. And then I used a staple to stick that tag onto the card. And I pulled out that washi tape again, which really you're not going to see the orange against that wood grain, but the heart is going to really stand out. And if you look closely, you can see that that it's washi tape. Now I will do some journaling on the deck. So I use my hot off the press journaling template to write out some lines. And then it just says my new patio furniture, or just new patio furniture on the deck outside my scrap room. We call it the scrap room terrace. That's my way of laying claim to it. It's mine. Now, this is just a table that shows the cases and deaths in our province for COVID. And I just basically, I wanted to include this because I realized that I haven't really been mentioning COVID very much in my pages. And I just, for reflection purposes for the future, I just journaled along the side of it that said COVID-19 cases are still a concern. Just kind of to note that it is still going on in case it appears to somebody who's, looking at this that it's all over. And there are quite a few deaths in our province. For the size of our province, there's a lot of deaths. So then we have some labels here on this photo that's not that great. It's a photo of the vacuum robot and my cat just kind of looking at it. So I added some labels. This time I went into my label stash instead of stamping my own labels. And I just wrote new RoboVac, and I attached it to that April card. And then I'm putting this is like the map that the vacuum makes of our house to show the path that it takes. I'll just put that on the rainbow card. And then I have another one of those Kelly Perky back sides of another card that I'm not using. And so I put two more labels on there. It says, we call him Roger Workman from Lost. And then my journaling here says, this robot vacuum mops and vacuums our floors daily. Finally, fewer dust bunnies. We named him after Ben Linus's dad, whose jumpsuit said Roger Workman. And then one of the characters assumed that his name was it's like Roger, comma, Workman. Like Workman was under the word Roger because that was his position at the Dharma Initiative. But somebody in there, are the main cast of characters, thought that his name was Roger Workman. So that's everything in our house has a lost name, like every device, every TV, our networks and Wi-Fi and everything has lost related names. We're running out of names. Like we've literally used even really obscure names we've used. So here's This Happened April Stuff card from the Stories by the Month kit. And I really love this card. I like how light it is. So I don't want to put too much journaling on it. So I just drew a few lines here in the center of the card, and I'll have it be an opportunity for there to be some white space on my page. It says Scott was having trouble breathing, so 811 called 911. It turns out he was okay. It wasn't COVID. And he was okay. Like he didn't even have to go to the hospital. They just monitored him. They hooked him up to an EKG and monitored him and told him to go to the hospital if it got worse. So my first thought was that this would be in a lift the flap and that it would be over that left portion of that photo so that you'd see the right part of the photo and then you'd lift it up to see the rest of the photo. But then I realized I don't like I don't need to see the rest of that photo. It's just my empty porch. So I decided to just attach this card like this. That way I'm using one less of those lift the flaps because I'm running out of them and I'm trying to source them. I cannot find them anywhere. If you know where I can get more of them, please leave me a comment. I would love to know. I think there's another brand, like maybe Creative Memories makes them. I'd be willing to order from Creative Memories too if they have them, because I just want more of them, and I'm down to about maybe 6 or 7 left. And I use them almost every week. So then another paper person kit came that was themed for like a bad day, like kind of bad news or not good stuff happening. So I just looked at the embellishments that they had, and I decided not to use it. I also roller date stamp the date there. And what I did put there was there's always something, which is one of those Ellie Edwards Stories by the Month kit. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out to these folks who support me over on Patreon. Thank you everyone here, because you help make this channel happen. And thanks to you too, if you're watching this far, for watching my videos. Take care and leave me a comment if you have any questions or concerns. I'd love to hear from you. Take care and have a really great scrappy week.